Welcome back, everybody. It's nice to be here. It's been a good day so far. My name is Catherine Hubert. I'm the owner here at Chez, Genèse. I am on a mission, as well as my team, to change the way that our world both views and employs adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We are practicing that mission and model here at our restaurant, Chez Genèse, in Greensboro, North Carolina. And this is our online platform where we talk more about who we are, what we do, and why we do it. And we are so glad to have you here today. It's been a normal administrative day for me. Wednesdays are my Monday, my first day that I come back in. So today I did a little bit of kind of extra work for myself and doing a little bit of canvassing in Greensboro to get the word out more about the education and advocacy work that we do. And then I came into work, so a little bit later than normal, worked on paying bills, getting our financial situation checked out and in shape, which is something I do every week, working on schedules, touching base with the staff, going through catering with our catering director and general manager and chef, and then here we are. Now it's time to talk to you guys. We have been talking, I was like, as if this has been a long time. It has not been. Last week, we started talking about different models of disability and different ways of viewing or thinking about disability underneath the umbrella of these three different models. So those three models are medical, social, and moral. Last week, we talked about the medical model of disability. If you missed that, check it out. Quick recap on that. The medical model is more diagnosis-based. It places the responsibility of the disability onto the person with the disability or onto a caregiver or family member. And it can be very oriented towards fixing, curing, solving, etc., a disability. We talked about some of the pros and the cons of that model. If you have questions on that, definitely drop them in the comments below. Or if you want to weigh in with some of your own thoughts on pros and cons on that, we would love to read it. But today we're going to be talking about the social model of disability, which looks at disability a little bit differently than the medical way of thinking. Out of the three models of disability, the social model of disability is the one that I think Chez Genèse as a business concept most closely identifies with and is pushing towards. That does not mean, and as we discussed this a little bit last week, that we are not impacted by or have understanding or potentially bias from those other models as well. But just in terms of the way our business has been structured, the vision and the plan that we have moving forward, I think we most closely identify with this model of disability, which is that the responsibility of disability falls more broadly on society as a whole. Disability is not viewed under the social model as something that needs to be changed or fixed. It is instead seen, so there's no tie to a disability being viewed as an illness or as an impairment. Instead, disability is seen as being part of someone's identity and part of their humanity, just in the same way that I could give a lot of identifiers about myself. I identify as a woman. I am a woman with brown hair. I am a white woman. I am a small business owner. I am a sister. I am, et cetera, et cetera. I'm average height, whatever your identifiers are. I'm young, I'm old, I'm tall, I'm short, etc. I'm athletic, I'm, a nerd. Whatever you decide your identifiers are. Not that being an athlete and being a nerd are opposite from each other. Should clarify that. But the social model views disability as being part of your identity. It is not all of who you are, but it is part of who you are. It's not something that's separated from you. It's not something that needs to go away. It's not something that we're trying to fix. It's just part of what makes you you. With that, the potential obstacles or inconveniences that a person with a disability may face in our society, that responsibility of that is placed back onto the society versus the disabled human. An example of that could be a physical obstacle. So a person who's in a wheelchair, if a building is not equipped with an elevator, then the person in the wheelchair would not have adequate access to a third or a 30th or 100th story in a tall building if there's no elevator. It's not the person who's in a wheelchair, it's not their fault for being in a wheelchair, for not being able to walk upstairs. It's the fault and responsibility of the building for not providing an alternative or another or a reasonable way to access those other floors. So if this is not the model that you have been familiar with before, if it's not one that you have been exposed to much before, it may feel fairly new and take a minute for your brain to adjust and for your eyes and your ears to start to see and experience disability through a different lens, and recognize that there truly are a lot of ways where our society fails to provide access or accommodations for anything outside of what our society has deemed to be the norm or to be baseline, which we've talked about before in other videos is problematic on multiple fronts, but certainly problematic when it comes to disability rights. There is no such thing as normal. That's a false concept to begin with. It's harmful, dehumanizing, marginalizing across multiple fronts. When we limit our society to this very narrow understanding of what it means to be a human and what it looks like to have access, opportunities, rights, etc., we're missing a wide percentage of the population, and we're certainly doing a lot of harm and disservice to humans in our society who have disability. So, with the social model, there's this idea that disability does not truly originate with the human who has the disability. It tends to originate more with the society that's not inclusive or welcoming to a broader understanding or scope of what it looks like to be human and to operate as a human within our world. We can take that a lot of other places, and we will do that in the future. We're not going to dig too much deeper into that today for the sake of time, but pros and cons of this model. Would love to hear your thoughts about what some of the pros and cons could be. From my own personal perspective, I think a pro for this model certainly is that it pushes us to create a more inclusive world that takes a more community versus an individualistic mindset, that we all hold responsibility in terms of creating space and environments that are welcoming towards all humans. It pushes us to think outside of our own box and our own experience and be willing to consider people who have lives and needs that may be different from ours. It creates a model where more and more people in our world and society can show up fully and have the same opportunities and access. So there's a lot of positives there. I think a potential con to this model is that it can dismiss the fact that we are not operating generally out of that model yet. And so because the moral and the medical model of disability are still pretty prevalent, and disability can be seen as something that is to be pitied, that makes someone less fortunate, that is a challenge, that is a hardship, that causes suffering, etc. Because so much of that thinking is still prevalent, I think the social model, in first pitching it to someone who may have experienced disability in one of these other ways, could feel like you're dismissing the emotional reality that someone may be feeling or experiencing around disability and a disability diagnosis. I think the more that our society continues to shift and evolve and change and grow and adapt, the less overwhelming, hopefully, disability diagnosis will feel to people, because we have more opportunities, acceptance, it's become more normalized, etc. But the reality is that we're just not there yet. So I don't think there's a negative to the model in terms of how the model operates. I think there's a potential con to how this model may make people feel if their experience lies outside of what this model has to offer. So those are my thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts. Next week we're going to talk about the moral model, which is, as I've been learning about these three models, I'm like, this is the one that I think I was mostly steeped in. And so there were threads that I was like, there were some things that were hitting me, and I was like, that's a bias that I'm still holding, or that's a theme or something that I've held on to that I don't think I want to hold on to anymore. And it's been because of just growing up with, sounds very close. That is very close. Hold on. Yeah, hold on. Okay. That actually, there was a lot that happened out there. And I've totally lost my train of thought now. We're going to close the video for today. It's possible that I had some other remaining thoughts, but I don't remember what they are, and I think that we mostly covered everything. So, thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of our life downtown. We're grateful for you. We're grateful for you tackling topics that we just don't talk about a lot in our community and in our world, and be willing to enter into these conversations with us. So, signing off. Happy Wednesday. Much love to all of you, and